actually not that long, so I'm pretty sure that some of you all are way more experienced than I do. So please correct me if I make any mistakes, and the following ideas are just what I think and what I noticed as far as for my experience. Yeah. So first of all, I would like to start with the overview of English learners' context in China. So actually most Chinese, they start learning English from an early age, and the parents really hope that their kids can learn English well, starting from a younger age. So many parents will send their kids to some English language program to improve their English, even though they already have some English lessons in the classroom. So the other thing that it's related to the English learners in China is that there's actually a difference between individual learners and English language proficiency. So some Chinese English learners, they are very good at English, and you can tell from, let's say, their writing performance and also their speaking performance. But some of them are really struggling in understanding English words or memorizing the English grammar. The other thing is that English language learning obviously is always stressed and in Chinese school environment, and also is highly valued in the job market. Yeah. Okay. And the second thing that I would like to share is some of the challenges in teaching EFL in China. So I think the first one is pretty obvious. So since almost all Chinese, we speak Chinese outside of the classroom. So there's actually a lack of English language environment. So it's very unlike from my experience in America, where everyone else is speaking English even though you walk outside of the campus. So you are pretty immersed in the English language environment. But unfortunately, students, I should say, like, maybe the most important time for them to practice and use their English mostly happen in the classroom. Yeah. And the second challenge is that it depends on different schools. So some schools, they have pretty large class sizes. So for example, they might have 50 students in a classroom with one English teacher, and the classroom seems to be very tight sometimes. So it really needs the English teachers to think of some ideas about having all the students involved, for example, for discussion, because it might not be practical to have everyone stand up and walk around because it's already, the whole space is kind of packed. Yeah, so this is also one of the challenge, that if you have like large classes with many students in your class, then how are we going to design the class and make sure that everyone involved in English learning in the classroom. The third challenge that I would like to share is that from the student's point of view, honestly, there are some students who are very reluctant to speak English in the classroom, and they might think that, oh, it's not that useful to practice speaking English because when we walk out of the classroom, nobody uses English and all you hear is Chinese, then why are we learning English? So I think this is also a point that as an EFL teacher, that we should like notify the students why we are learning English and why English is important. But that doesn't mean that, okay, Chinese and Indonesian language are not important, but just basically English is a commonly used language in the world. So yeah, so teachers just have to think of some ways to to trigger the students and help them get motivated in English learning. The other challenge, as you can see on the PowerPoint, is the gap between theories and practices. So I really appreciate my experience in Ohio State University in America. And I did learn a lot of different theories from different professors and different courses. But honestly, when I came back to China and I realized that some theories or practices that I have learned abroad may not be that useful in the Chinese classroom context. So it really have to, well, when I realized that, it really makes me, stop and then think that, okay, now I'm in China, not in the state. So of course I learned many theories and good strategies for teaching, but how am I going to use those and fit into the Chinese language classroom? And I think maybe that will also be the same for teaching English in, let's say, some other Asian country like Japan or Korea, since because of the lack of English language environment outside of the classroom. And so the last challenge is the background knowledge of Western culture. So I really believe that as an EFL teacher, we are not just teaching English, but also the culture behind it. So again, I feel very, very thankful for having the chance to just step out of my home country and then have this chance to absorb as many things as I have learned from in the US, so that I can also help the students to acknowledge some of the interesting things or realities abroad. So it's not just teaching them English grammar and memorizing all the vocabulary, but also about like Western culture, like what's the differences between like a dining culture between Western countries and China. Yeah, so those are a very interesting point, and usually whenever it comes to the Western culture, the students are very interested in listening and interacting in the classroom. Okay, so the next part, I'm going to break it down into some of the practices that I find it useful in teaching 4 different skills, which include speaking, listening, reading, and writing. So let's start from some practices to teach speaking. So in my EFL class, at the very beginning of the semester, I will tell my students that since this is an ESL or EFL class, then we need to make sure everyone is trying your best to use as much English as possible. That doesn't mean that I forbid using Chinese in the class, because the English-Chinese translation is very helpful in EFL classroom, but also I just want to guarantee that the 45 minutes or 40 minutes in my class that everyone is listening to different English resources, and also they have to practice their oral English instead of practicing their oral Chinese in an EFL class. The other thing is that I find it very important to give some demonstration and just present how to speak in a certain way. So for example, if we are learning about like, let's say, opinion writing or give an opinion about certain topic, then I think as a teacher, for me, it's very helpful to let the students know ahead of time some of the speaking structure that they can use that is related to giving an opinion. So for example, they will learn some phrases like, in my opinion, I think, or something like, I agree with the previous speaker, but from my point of view, I have something to add on that. So those are some of the things when I demonstrated to the students, and they can use it and apply it into their speaking activities. So instead of having them do like, okay, you guys just talk and discuss with your teammates, with your partners, I think it's very helpful and important to let them know like how to discuss or how to speak in a correct way or a language appropriate way in English. And that needs the teachers to teach ahead of time before having them give some like output in English. Yeah, and then the other thing is to create some life scenarios that can encourage them to practice their oral English. Since I mentioned in the earlier um, slide of the PowerPoint that that's true that we don't have that much of English language environment as you walk out of the classroom. So we have to help students to see the necessity and importance of learning English because they can use it after they learn English. It's not just learning and then forgetting and then learning and forgetting again. So it's helpful to let them see that, oh, I can really use English in my real life. And how we're gonna achieve it is we can create some real life scenarios. So for example, when we are learning about the theme of food or restaurant, then we can have the students create dialogues about, you know, like serving the food in the restaurant and just the interaction between the person who deliver food and also the customers who eat there. So this will help them to, okay, think about, all right, what are the common sentence structures or the common ways of expression to use in that certain area, and that will arise their interest in learning. The other thing is, yeah, there's one more thing I would like to add on is I feel like when we teach, I mean, when I teach speaking, it's important that I don't speak too much because the students will find it pretty boring if the teachers speak too much in the classroom. So it's very important to give them time and space and let them talk and use their creativity and imagination to be involving in the classroom discussion. Yeah, and then I would also like to stress the last point. So it's reading along with the tape to practice pronunciation. So whenever I find out that, okay, I'm not sure about how to pronounce this word or that kind of proper noun, and I don't want to give the wrong pronunciation to the students, then I will use the tape or the CD-ROM that is connected to the textbook. And then they will be like listening to different speakers to speak English so that they will know that, oh, there are actually different accents or different kinds of English. So like they have to listen about, okay, British English, American English, Australian English, Singaporean English, and then they will know that, oh, actually there are different ways of different tones or different accents of speaking English, and that is okay as long as we get to understand each other's point, and that's the most important thing. Yeah, so that's just some of my ideas for the practices of teaching speaking. And yeah, and I would really like to hear some of your ideas about how to, you know, better teach not only speaking but also the other four skills at the end of the speech or during the Q&A time, so that I can also learn from all of you. Yeah. Okay, so next let's move on to some practices that I have been using in teaching listening. First of all, I think it's very important to activate the learner's prior knowledge. What does that mean? So it means we need to help students see and find the connection between the listening materials and their lives. Okay, so if they are listening to something that they feel like, okay, that topic is so far away from us and we didn't see the point of learning it, or the skill that I'm going to use in the future, then they will be not, you know, not pretty involving in the classroom, and their mind might drift away. So it's very important to help them find a connection between the thing that we're going to listen next, and then how's that gonna affect me, and what's that relationship between that and my life. Yeah. The other thing is give clear and direct instruction about listening skills. So for example, before having them listen to certain materials, I would say something like, okay, in today's class, we are going to focus on these two listening skills. The first one is listen for main ideas, and the second one is listen for details. And at this time, I would write those keywords, key points on the board, like listen for main ideas and listen for details, and how we're gonna do it and the steps for it. So the students, they are aware of, okay, their learning goals at the beginning of the class, so that it's not gonna be like at the end of the class and then they really don't know what they have learned in the class. Yeah, so the other thing that I would like to talk about, because I believe all of you can see all the things that I wrote on the PowerPoint. So the other thing that I would like to talk about is for the note taking skill. I find out that some of my students, they are not confident. For example, they're not confident at their English handwriting. And also they may not know how to take notes. So I think at the beginning of the class, it's important for me to slow down the pace of my speaking and teaching, and also remind them to take out, let's say, take out your notebook, and it's time for write down some notes, and these are the key points of today's class, and it's going to show up in the exam next week. Okay, so that they will be aware of it, like when to take notes. And also, like as for me, sometimes I will write on the board and show them, okay, how to take notes. For example, every time you put the date on the top left of the page, and then you start using like how to use different bullet points to stress those important things in your notes. Yeah, and also have them, let's say, prepare for the highlighters and different color pens and pencils, so that it can use different colors to help them be more focused in the classroom. Yeah. And let's move on to some practices of teaching reading, English reading. So I would like to start from the beginning. So discuss the purpose of reading and the reading genre. Again, I think it's very important to help the students see the point of reading different English resources, different English articles. Like, why are we reading this? And why do we need to read? And what can reading bring us? So it's not just about why do we need to read in English, but also why do we need to read in Chinese or other languages? Like, what's the purpose of reading? So I feel like once they realize the importance of reading and the interest of like some joy that you can gain from reading, and then they will be more willing to start reading, like even on their own. So I think this is important to not just, giving students lots of reading materials, like you need to read this and finish that by the end of this week, but also help them see that why are we doing this? And like what are the differences between this reading article and then the other one? So that is about the reading genre. Like, for example, sometimes I will focus on like fiction reading for this month, and the next month we're going to move on to the nonfiction reading, and what's the differences between fiction and nonfiction. What are the subgenre of fiction and nonfiction? So as you are peeling those important things down and present it in front of the students, and that will help them to see that, oh, I can tell the difference between different reading materials that I have, and that will help them boost their sense of confidence in learning English. Yeah. And the other thing that I find it pretty helpful is to do some vocabulary instruction while reading. So it's not just about reading the whole passage or the paragraph, but without solving some unknown vocabulary problem. So it really depends. So sometimes I will pre-teach the vocabulary before we step into the reading, but sometimes I will give vocabulary instruction while we are reading. So I will push my students to read between the lines and then see like, okay, based on this sentence and then the next one, so what do you think this word mean in English? Can you guess the meaning, or can you predict what's going to happen next? Those kind of things. So by teaching them, for example, let's say you can take a look at the transition word. Like if it's using but, that means the previous part and then the latter part, they have opposite meaning. But if it's something like which means da da da, then the latter part is actually an explanation of the word that you don't know, or the word that you need to answer the meaning. So by showing them the steps of how to read and how to do the reading comprehension questions is actually more helpful than just giving them all the reading materials and then let them read and like figure it out by themselves or through their classmates. So again, I think as for me, I need to tell my students and show the steps of how to read in a certain way, and then give them the time and the chances to work on reading on their own. And the other thing that I find it very important is that, so don't just, don't only think that, okay, the textbook is the most important reading material we have in a school. I think that's not true. So like I will bring my students to the school library from time to time, so that they will have the chance to borrow the books in the library and find the books that they want to read, or the books that is related to the theme that we are talking about in this week or this month. And they will realize that, okay, reading seems to be more fun because I can pick the book. It's not just, okay, everyone have to learn this textbook. Yeah, so just help students to fall in love in reading and see that I can read and I can read more, and that's very helpful for improving their English reading ability. Because as for me, once I am becoming more confident or interested in something, then I would like to spend more time in it. And I think that may also be the same with my students. So just keep giving them some positive feedback, and also just stand next to them and help them to go through this process. Because honestly, some of my students, they really struggle in English reading, and I have to sit right next to him or her and go through each sentence step by step, and it really takes some time. But I think this is also the reason why we have the teachers, and why it really helped me to be more patient in English teaching. Yeah. So, and the last thing about this point I would like to share is to have the students work on something. So reading is great, but after reading, we need to think about how much can students take or remember from the things that they have read. So I think it's very important for me to create some activities or think about some games or projects that they can work on, and to like visualize their reading, or can help them to go through the things they have read before. So for example, they would do, let's say, a reading project, or they would do a poster. If we are reading a story, then they're going to make a poster about, okay, different scenes, different plots of the story, and which plot is their favorite and why. So as they're doing the writing activity and discussion with their classmates, and that will help them to leave a longer, a memory into their mind about what they have read. So I think that's important, to not only read, but also have them work on something about what they have read. Yeah. Okay, because of the time, I have to move on. So as you probably noticed, I skipped some points in my slide. But yeah, please feel free to ask me about what that what that is about, if you have any questions. So next is about some practices in teaching English writing. So it's the structure, it's kind of the same as I teach the other skills like listening, speaking, and reading. So basically, it's the structure of pre-learning, while learning, and post-learning. So the same goes with writing. So before I have them do a writing assignment or a writing activity, then it's important for me to explain, like, why are we writing this, and what are we going to learn about a certain type of writing. For example, we are learning about opinion writing. Then I can't just tell my students, okay, write about your opinion about a certain topic, because they're going to be really confused about, okay, we have some words to say, but how are we going to organize it in our writing? And the organization of writing is very important, right? So usually I would just present the structure of writing. So for example, these days we're learning about opinion writing. So, and I find some very good resources online, and I just let my students to use the structure of Oreo. So Oreo is actually a type of snacks, and but each letter, it's an abbreviation of a word. So the structure's name is easy for the students to remember, and also it's easy for them to use in the class. So for example, Oreo, O stands for opinion, and then R stands for reason, E for example, and then the last O is for opinion again. So you restate your opinion again. So as students remember this structure, and it will help them to know that, okay, whenever we do opinion writing or opinion speaking, I need to tell others my opinion first, and then I need to give the R for reasons, and I need to think about an example, and at last I have to like convince the others by telling them my opinion again, but in a different way. Yeah, but it means the same thing. So I think the structure is very helpful for having them to write. And from a teacher's point of view, it's also going to be easy for the teachers to give them grade based on the rubric. So as for writing, I think, and also the speaking part, I think it's important for teachers to give students the rubrics ahead of time so that they know that, okay, how the teacher going to evaluate my presentation or how the teacher is going to evaluate my writing. So let's say if the focus of this week is about, so one of my English classes this week is we are focusing on simple past tense. So I let my students know ahead of time that, okay, the organization of the writing is important, but in this writing assignment, I'm going to focus more on whether or not you're using the simple past tense of the verbs correctly, so that they will know that, okay, even though I make some mistakes of my like the spelling of vocabulary or some other points, but I know what's the focus of this week and what's the focus of teacher when it comes to grading, and that will also help them to relieve some stress in writing, because writing is a very it's kind of like a combination of, okay, you have enough input and then now you're going to write it and share your idea. And so during this process, again, given students, constantly giving them the positive feedback, not only orally, but also write down some positive comments like, oh, I really like your handwriting. I think this point really interests me. And could you explain a little bit more, like give me more details? And those kind of ways and notes, and it will help students to know, like, okay, I'm still doing well in some part of writing. I'm not that worse, or I like, yeah, it just helped them increase their, like the level of confidence in writing. And that's extremely important for the EFL students, just my opinion. Yeah. And okay, so after the pre-writing part, and next it comes to the most important part, writing. So along with the writing, I think it's it really depends, but for me, I usually put the grammar instruction into the writing lessons, so that I will let them know, like, okay, so this writing class, we are also going to focus on this and that grammar point, like simple past tense or present perfect tense. And then they will notice that, okay, these are the points that I need to focus when it comes to today's writing. And also when it comes to the checklist for their self-editing after they finish writing, they know what to look for in their writing or what to look for in others' writing. And that will help them to see that, okay, now I see how to use the correct grammatical structure in my writing. So it's not just, okay, I read about it, I know what it is, but when it comes to my turn to write in English, and then I have so many grammatical mistakes, because when you read it, you understand it, and you listen to those past tense or different grammatical structure, you understand it. But the thing is, when my students come to write in English, and they will realize that, oh, I forgot to change the singular form into plural form. I forgot to add ing at the end of the verb, or I forgot um, to put a capitalized letter at the beginning of the sentence. So those are the tiny little points that can help them to see the process of learning and the process of improving. Yeah, and Mm, the other thing is that I'll make sure to keep reminding myself that the process of learning, it's also the process of making mistakes. So I know it's very commonly happen that as a teacher, like I don't want to see that many mistakes when I give them grades or when I'm checking their writing or listening to their group presentation. But that's true, and that's something that we cannot avoid. Like when I think about my experience of learning English, I made lots of mistakes, and but people around me, they're pretty forgiving, and they just sometimes they point it out, sometimes they don't. But I think the most important thing for language is as long as we use it to communicate, and then we can get to know each other's ideas, and that's the most important thing. So allow students to make mistakes, and don't push them too hard, and don't push yourself too hard. Because usually if I'm too strict with not letting them make mistakes, that will make me stressful, and it's not going to be good for me in teaching, because I think the emotion of a teacher can sometimes affect students' performance. If they see that, okay, this teacher is usually very stressful and they don't want us to make mistakes, the teacher is pretty strict, and then that might push the students away in learning English. So I think sometimes for me, I will like adjust my emotion while I'm teaching, and let them see that, okay, it's okay to make mistakes. And sometimes I also share with them my mistakes when I'm learning English, so that they will see that, oh, okay, like teachers are not perfect too. Like they make mistakes, and that's okay, but that doesn't mean that we'll keep the mistake and without correcting it. Right? We will correct it, but that's a process, and that process can be back and forth several times, and it's okay. So yeah, sometimes I think when it comes to teaching, it's good that we go for the like the professionalism and the perfection, but also slow down and give some time for myself to like to breathe and relax and let go, and realize that, okay, it's all right, I can handle it, and they're gonna learn it finally. It just takes some time. Yeah, so um, these are some of the things that I find it helpful in my teaching life. And oops. Yeah, so again, just want to say thank you to you all for hearing, for spending your time here, and then listening to me giving a super long lecture, a super long speech. And I hope it's not that boring. And also because I don't have like 10-year teaching experience, so maybe some of my ideas are correct, or maybe some of them are not that applicable in Indonesian learning and teaching environment. So again, this is not the case for like all the English education in China. So it's just simply my point of view. Yeah. I think that's basically it. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. Again,
Thank you.
my good friend. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty insightful. I myself learned a lot from your talk, and yeah, it's true that we should allow the students to make mistakes. And
Yeah.
I would like to agree on don't push yourself too hard. Yeah, because yeah,
Yes, because that really makes me stressful when I feel like, oh, we already talked about it. Then why did you make the mistake again? Because I really had one student, because the whole grammar point for this week is simple past tense, but in her writing, like almost all the verb that she used was using the simple present tense. So that really makes me struggle a little bit when I grade her writing. But at the end, I feel like, okay, probably I should give up, having the red pen and then circle all the mistakes that she had. But instead, I just give her back her writing during the class yesterday, and then I just let her like tell me what is the what is the grammar point that we have learned and focus on this week, and let her take a look on her writing and see if she can find out her own mistakes without me pointing everything out. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I guess we have a lot of questions in the chat box. So the first is from Ferbiana. So you may want to check the chat box. According to your experience when teaching, what is the struggle to educate your students, especially in listening? Because in my opinion, it is the same in Indonesia. Some students are still not ready to listen, let alone accept new vocabulary that is still foreign to them. And is it important for us to teach listening material according to their needs and based on the real experience they've had? So that's the question.
Yeah, so could you, sorry, but could you remind me again of, is it the question that showed up in the chat?
In the chat, yeah, exactly.
What's the time? Is it the 10:33 one?
It's 9:33 here.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
From Ferbiana Nerissa.
Oh, I see. Yeah, sorry, I might need several seconds to go through the question real quick. To teach listening material. Yeah, so for here, what is the struggle to teach my students in listening? I think for my struggle is that when it comes to listening, and it really depends on different English levels of the student. So if the student English level is a little bit low, and then when actually no matter what they hear, as long as in English, they might feel like, okay, I'm gonna give up because I can't understand it, or it's speaking too fast, or there are some words that I don't know. So I think it's important to know that, like, why they're not listening to the listening material. Is it because of they don't understand the vocabulary, or is it because the audio, like the speaker in the audio speaks too fast, or is it about, like, I don't know, like the accent that they haven't heard about before and then they have no idea what that is. And also I think it's the purpose of listening. So when it comes to teaching listening, I think it's important that don't just let them listen to the listening material for once. So for example, you can say, okay, the first time when we listen, I want everyone to focus on the main idea. That means you don't need to take any notes, and you can feel relaxed sitting back, on your chair, and then see and guess if you can realize what that is. And then after listening, I think it will be helpful to have the students share their ideas in the group first before the teacher pointing out several students to stand up and answer the questions. Because at that time, the students will feel pretty nervous, especially for those who hear nothing or very little about the listening material, and they would feel like very embarrassed when they realize that, oh, I'm not that good at listening. So I think as they are sharing with their group mate, and also they're listening to, okay, oh, this is what my teammate, what they have heard about, and that can help them to gather more information. And then when it comes to their turn to answer your question in the class, after they stand up, and they will feel more confident, and like less shy, or feel less shamed when they like share their opinion in the classroom. And here you mentioned some students are not ready to listen, so that's why I think, um like for me, I will try to see if there is some connection between what they are going to listen, and their life. So for example, these days the unit that we are focusing on in listening, it's about the energy consumption, the energy use in different countries or in different families. So some families use lots of energy. Let's say they have like television, use washing machine all the time, and dryer, all the different stuff, and use cars to go to work and school. And the others, maybe it seems to be a little bit more poorer, but they use less energy, like they go to school by bus, those kind of thing. So before we listen this listening material, I will ask them like, how do you guys use energy at home, and what machines do you think use the most energy, or what activities use the least energy? And during this time they can see like, oh, it's something about my life, right? It's something that I know, and I can have a say about it. And then they will see, okay, then so far those are the ideas about what they have learned and hear, um, and share about their life. And then next, how are they going to like apply it into the listening material? Yeah, so I would say like, okay, thank you everyone for sharing your side of ideas, and now let's move on to listen and see how these three family, they how much energy they use in their energy, in their family. So I think that kind of build a connection and make them maybe a little bit more interested. I'm not sure. I hope so. I hope they're more interested. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, what you usually do is effective in my case as well, because when they realize they're going to listen is important for them, they will be more interested, and they will be more focused on the materials, on the listening materials. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we still have a lot of questions. So yeah, the next one, you can scroll down.
Yeah.
You can skip my question
Oh.
from Mahika. Yeah. Talking about genre.
Oh, sorry. Did I miss something, or?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, it's the question at 10:41 a.m.
Oh, okay.
The
From
first one. Marhamah Ika Putri.
Mahkamah Eka Putri.
Yeah.
Hello. So this was reading purpose and reading genres. Okay. Thank you for the question from Ika. When I read to to the last sentence of your question, I realized that the latter one is a pretty tough one. Okay, let me start from the beginning. So you asked about are you implementing an extensive reading program? Okay, so I think that really depends. So previously, what I did is, let's say, like every 2 weeks, and then we will go to the library, and that's the time for like extensive reading. But yeah, of course, they have to pick the books that are written in English, not Chinese. And that will be the extensive reading time that they can focus. But let's say if this month or this week I'm focusing on let's say the detective genre of reading, then I'm gonna let them, choose the books from the library or the ebooks online that it's related or that fall into this genre. Yeah, and then it's not just about letting them read it, but also as they're reading or after they read, I will prepare some questions for them. For example, some vocabulary, like checklist, and see if they really understand those words. Um, and also like if they to check if they understand what they have read. And of course they can discuss with each other, they can ask me questions, we're going to have classroom discussion time. So it's not just about, okay, we're going to read this whole book and then I'm going to let you guys do it. It's not, it's like, okay, we can read the first chapter and the second chapter together, and as a teacher I'm going to tell you step by step, like how I'm going to read it, and like how I'm going to um, overcome the difficulty of, okay, I have this word that I don't know. Is it gonna affect my understanding? Maybe. Then what I'm gonna do? Like if not, then I can just skip it and then keep moving on. So this is also one strategy of reading lessons that I use is to talk out loud. Yeah, to just like verbalize the teacher's process of thinking to the students so that they know, oh, I see the teachers when they read, they do like this, like that's their process of thinking. And okay, I think maybe I can imitate that and try if it will work in my reading. And yeah, that will help them to read. And also for students who are not interested in the genre, I chose, yeah, that's a very tough one. What do you think, Mr. Prostia? Does it
Well,
happen to you before?
that's quite challenging. Yeah, not interested in the genre, but I think we can refer to what you said before, like building the connection between
Mhm,
the genre and the students' lives, like asking
mhm,
questions. What do you think about this? How do you feel about that? Yeah, just like
mm,
what you said previously in the listening, teaching listening. I
yeah.
guess that would work.
Mm. Thank you for saving me. And actually, I have another point to add is if they're not interested, then good. Like, tell me why.
Oh,
Then maybe I can let them do a little bit of writing assignment to like write down the reason why you're interested in this genre and why you're not. And if you're not, then tell me which genre that you're interested in. Then also, I think what I can do ahead of time is that I can, kind of do a survey, like give out a survey to let them fill in the blank, okay, and see. All right, so these are the genre that we introduced, and also the subgenre. And then if you give a ranking, from 1 to 8 or 1 to 10, and then you put 1 as the most interested one, and then 8 as the least interested one, and then so they can see and compare. Okay, maybe we can put these students in a group and they can do like romance genre And then those they're more interested in like let's say the horror theme, and they can focus on something else, or the humor or the poem. So they can participate in the, they can pick which genre they're interested in, and also the teacher can collect the information and know like, okay, it seems like 10 out of 15 students are interested in the romance subgenre, then we're gonna start with that. Yeah, I think I hope I answer your question, and I hope that will be helpful to you.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, I'm gonna try that later in my class. Okay. Well, do we still have enough time for the other questions? What do you think?
I mean, I still have time. Yeah,
Okay.
but it's just probably later I need to charge up my laptop, but it's okay. I'll let you guys know before I move.
Okay. So, how about the next question from Cynthia?
Cynthia.
Cynthia, yes.
Is it the 1041 one?
Yeah, 1041.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, so again, first of all, I want to thank you for the question that brought up by Cynthia. Is it Cynthia?
Yeah, Cynthia.
Yeah, so here, um, for me, when it comes to the listening skills practices, what I would do at the beginning is, so I think almost all my students are aware of it so far, because I have been like stressing about that like earlier. So basically what I ask them is that, like, when it comes to listen, what are the, how should I say, like, what are, like, how can you tell if a person is a good listener? So what will a good listener do? So for example, like a good listener, their eyes are on the speaker, and it's not just about ears listening, but also your eyes are on the speaker, and then you take notes about what the speaker said, and also you're not like, like laying down like at the back of the chair and then feel pretty relaxed. You're sitting up straight and having a pen or pencil in your hand and have a piece of paper, and you are ready to take notes. So so these are the other steps. So whenever it comes to listening, I will remind them like, what should you prepare before you listen? And then they will know that, okay, I need to, get myself ready before I start do the listening practices. And here what I mean is that, so you tell the students what listening skills that they're going to they're going to focus. And it's, I mean, after giving them the direct instruction about listening skills, like, okay, this class we're going to listen for main ideas. Okay, this sounds pretty broad and general to the students. Then you can say like, okay, after we listen, i would like um I would like to hear from you about, like, in the story, who are the characters, where does it happen, how does the story end, and like why. So like those are like the 5W question, like who, what, where, why, when. So these are the pretty big and general thing they can listen and they can find out the answer for. And then I would say, okay, now are we ready to listen? And then after listening, I will let them, share with your team first, and then I will pick one or two to answer. So for example, maybe I will pick the one that I think they will obviously get the correct answer. And then I will pick them to answer the question. And then, because some students, they might feel left behind because they don't really understand the context, and I will ask the second student to repeat what the first students say. Like if they cannot, they can't say like too much, they can't share too much about what they have heard, then I will say, could you repeat what student A just say? So during the repetition, they can also help them to see, oh, this is what happened in the story or in the listening material. Yeah. So, but of course, after the explicitly give instructions, so this is basically at the beginning of learning that certain listening skill. So once you already teach it and the students already learn it, then in the future listening time, I think the point is, as teacher, I will just remind the student, okay, what is the listening skill that we learned last week? And how are we gonna use that in today's listening material? Yeah, and I think that might help them to see it's not like, okay, I'm telling you, last week we have learned about 2 listening skills, A and B, but instead of me telling everything to them, but like having students to to um to see if they can remember what they have learned. So to link back what they have learned before. Yeah. And just keep reminding them about, okay, what are the skills that we learned so far and how are we going to use that into the next listening material. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty much like teaching one thing at one time, like
Yeah, yeah.
not giving too much burden for them to learn, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, shall we go to the next one?
Mm-hmm.
1042.
Okay. How do you provide feedback to your students? Okay, so for like the teaching writing part, so again, I feel like it really depends. So what I usually do is that, for example, after they have, so after I teach certain way of writing, like opinion writing, I tell you guys what the Oreo structure is, and I'm gonna give you a topic, or let's say I give you 3 topics, and you can choose which one that you want to write about your opinion. So that they can have the sense of, okay, I can choose something, you know? It's not like I must do everything that the teacher tell me, but the teacher give me 3 to 5 things and I have the option to choose which one that I'm more interested in writing. And that will help them to be more involved. And after they finish writing, usually what I do, if it's their first draft, I will collect all of them. And then after the class, sorry, I will just go through all their writing first without holding my pen and then give them all the grades or circle all the mistakes. I will just read all of them, like read all their writing assignments first, and then I will ask myself, okay, what are the common things that I notice in their writing? So that will include what are the common mistakes they have, or what are the common good things that they have um, done, like accomplished in the writing. So maybe I would realize that, oh, like 80% of my students, they know the Oreo structure, and then they are trying very hard to use Oreo structure in their writing. But when it comes to some grammar and also some transition words, maybe they're missing the transition word in each paragraph, and that's the time I know. And instead of grading them when I notice that's the common mistake, I will just, the next day class, I will just give all the writing assignment back to the students, and then I will give them the checklist for self-editing. So So I will say like maybe I will do a small lecture about transition word, because that's the thing that I noticed, that most of them don't have transition word or don't know how to use transition word in a correct way. Like firstly, secondly, thirdly, they just say their opinion without explaining like which one is the most important or what. So I think, maybe I should do a 5-minute lecture about, okay, what are the transition word, and I will make sure each of them have a little piece of paper that I print out some commonly used transition word that they can also apply to their writing, and then let them do the self-editing, and then they switch the paper and do like peer editing. And then at the end of the class I collect them back. So if the mistakes can be corrected by the students by themselves, then I will let them do it. And I think just the teacher can like, so what I do is I will pair up the students who are better at writing and then who are a little bit, need more help in writing, so that they can see, this is the way of writing a good article, or writing a well-organized paragraph, and then they can learn from each other. So of course it will take lots of time if the teacher has to grade like 40 writing paper, and that's very stressful and it feels like it takes forever. So that's why I think we should also like, I should also teach, at least for me, I should teach my students how to check for their mistakes first. So there's some simple things like, okay, check each of your sentence. Does it end with, let's say, a period or exclamation mark or question mark? Okay. And does it start with a capitalized letter? Okay, so I don't want to collect all of your writing and then I will have to circle all the letters that you forgot to make it capitalized. So for the things that they can do it on their own, then I will just let them figure it out. Yeah. And then for some, some like collocation problem. So for example, what I noticed is some students, they will say, see somebody, and then adding the be verbs and then doing something. So for example, instead of saying I saw, because we're learning simple past tense, okay, so instead of saying I saw students learning in the classroom, or I saw students learn in the classroom, some of them, they will write I saw students were learning in the classroom. And then those points that I find out, okay, in 4 students writing material, they have the same problem, and I will bring it up in the classroom and then tell them like these are the 2 collocations that we should pay attention to, and if you find your writing also have this kind of mistake, please correct it on your own. And so they will find, okay, do I make the same mistakes? Then I don't need to like circle the same mistakes 4 times. Yeah.
So it's like encouraging the students to self-correct their mistakes.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And also for the class of 35 to 40 students, I think it's a process that, of course, we cannot let the students to self-correct all the time, because obviously like some mistakes they may not know, or they think they're correct, but actually that kind of expression is not very appropriate. Or yeah, so like those are the things that I think as teachers we have to find it out and point it out. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I guess this is the last one. The last
Okay.
question. 10.
And sorry to interrupt, by the way. Do you mind if I just, because I need to go down the hallway and then be back to my classroom and make sure my laptop is charged, because
Oh,
the
it's okay.
battery
Yeah.
is low.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but I can still hear you. Yeah.
So yeah, this will be the last question.
Okay. I'm so
Do you have a
sorry.
class?
Help? Yeah. Well, there's no student in the class, but yeah, I'm in the room down the hallway, so I will be back to my classroom and charge up my laptop.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so you guys can
It's
probably
cool.
take a look at the hallway.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay.
Was today supposed to be a day off for all the teachers?
Sorry?
Was today supposed to be a day off, like a holiday for all the teachers?
Yes, yes, because today it's Saturday. So yeah, so no students in the classroom. Whew. Okay, there we go. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, I think I'm ready for the next question.
Okay, this will be the last one. At 10:46.
46. How much time? How much of each stage is emphasized? Okay. Presentation practice and production. Okay. So thank you for sorry, how do you pronounce the student's name?
Furkon.
Furcon?
Furkon. Yes.
Furcon. Yeah, thank you Furcon for your question. So for the 3P model, yeah, this is also the thing that I would like to mention again about the gap and the differences between the theories and then the practices, because previously I think that okay, I can include those 3P, the presentation, practice, and production, and one class session. But then I realized it's not very practical. And maybe let's say in this class, I only, so let's say in the 40-minute class session, I will do like 10 or 15 minutes of presentation, and then they will have 20 minutes to practice, no matter it's a group practice or individual practice. And then I realized, oh, time is almost up. So I can't do the production part for this class. But then I will save that part of activities to the next class, or if I don't have any more ESL class today, I will save it next to the next day or next time. So I find out that, so what I'm trying to say is at the beginning, make sure that we have a not just a lesson plan for that specific lesson, but like a unit plan or like the weekly plan for the lesson. So let's say excuse me. So so it's not like I have ESL class every day. So maybe in this week I only have 4 ESL classes. And then before I teach, I will think about, okay, maybe the first class, I'm going to spend some time in like introduction of this whole unit. And that might need some time, right? And also like introduce the topic about this unit, like it's about energy. And then obviously I have to tell my students, okay, what is energy? What are different types of energy? Well, it sounds like a science class, but actually it's ESL class. And yeah, and also, all right, and then I realized I can have some practices time, like they can do some reading activity or listening activity about different types of energy, okay? And then for my lesson plan, I was thinking about, okay, that's pretty much for the first lesson. And then for the second lesson of this week, okay, since they already learned something, and and now I'm gonna let them try to see if they can produce the things that they have learned. So for the second class, maybe I'll give 30 minutes, most of the time, for them to do a group poster about different types of energy. So that will help them use the words of different, the words that are related to this unit. Like they will need to write down like the wind energy, the solar energy, like potential energy. So those words, those English words that have to show up in their poster. So as you probably notice in session 2, that most of the time in that class is production time. Okay, and then the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes, maybe I'll just give a comment or let them know what they should prepare or bring for the next class. So I think it's okay that we don't include all the 3P in one class, but just at least as a teacher, like I should be aware of my not only my lesson plan, but what's the whole unit, each class I'm going to teach. Yeah, and then notify the students what they will be learning or doing. Yeah, so for the presentation and practice, I think it's a little bit back and forth, because what I usually find out is that I think I already explained myself pretty clear, and I think this point is I already tell all the details that I know to the students. But when it comes to practices, or when it comes to they answering my question, and then I realize that, oh no, like that's not gonna happen, and I have to reteach it again. So I thought they already know it, but they don't, and I can't just go directly to the production part, because I know that if it continues, they cannot produce as much as I expected. So I have to go back and maybe present again or present in another way that they can understand better, and practice and see, oh, if that presentation is like match their needs, and then I can give more difficult like project for them to work on, and that might be a better way to have them produce more. Yeah, so I think it's important to be like flexible in teaching, because I have to tell you guys that there are many times that I thought I have a great plan, and I plan for all the things for my class, but then and it doesn't go the way as I wish. Yeah, and maybe I plan for 4 activities, and then at the end we only did 2, or we already finished all of it and we don't know what to do next. So I have to think about a plan B. So being flexible, and notice that the students needs some more time to learn or to relearn this again, and I think that's important. And just don't push yourself too hard. If it doesn't go, if you teach and it does not go the way as you wish.
Okay, thank you very much, Tina.
You're welcome.
Again. I think there are 3 important things that we can take away from this talk. The first is be flexible and don't push the students and yourself too hard. And then the second one is to focus on the students' needs and background. And the third is focus on the learning process, not the results.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Tina, for sharing your insightful experiences. I guess all of us learned a lot from you. That was really eye-opening for me, particularly. I learned a lot of things from you. And
Thank you so much.
hopefully we can meet again in another occasion
Mm-hmm.
with another topic to cover.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's all for today. Thank you very much for all the participants and goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Thank you so much, Miss Ina.
Thank you. I hope that everyone is safe and stay healthy.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, actually, how's the situation there? Like, because
It's
of the coronavirus.
I think it's getting worse because we have more casualties day by day. I think we are still waiting for the vaccine to
Mm,
fix this problem.
right,
How
right.
about there in China?
It's yeah, I think that the situation in China is getting better, thankfully. I
Okay.
mean, I don't have to wear masks to teach. I mean that the students already came back to the class to learn. Yeah, so we start teaching in I think it's in April. Yeah, so we already start for like several months.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
We
But
still have online teaching in Indonesia. Yeah.
oh, so it's still online learning and teaching.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
how about the like I mean the let's say the education like elementary school or secondary school are all the
It
schools closed at this time?
yeah, it's all the same. All the schools are closed. Yeah, that's very
Oh,
sad.
yeah. Make sure wearing a mask everywhere you go.
Yeah, sure.
Mhm.
Okay, then have a great weekend.
You too. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.